I think your calculators will come in handy here. What number is 48% of 650? What number is 48% of 650? So let's translate that into some useful math. Use your calculators to solve. Of course. So guys, what I'm looking for here, and you might think this is kind of silly. You might think this is a little silly right now, but it's really not. I do want to see a translation from you, something like this. I would say that what number could be interpreted as a variable. So I'm just going to call it x. The word is usually means equals. 48% would be 0.48. And then of means multiply, 650. So then you'd say x is equal to 312. It might seem a little silly right now, but when we move into some of these other ones, it's not going to seem so silly. So we want to be in a habit of interpreting like that. So let's go, new people, to the board and try this one.
Hey, Joel. All right, can you tell us what you're talking I didn't tell
Okay, last one is right here.
It's mine.
78 is what percent of 300?
No way. Yeah, but you can lift it on. I can do it with the truck. I can probably do that. Sadly, that's what I can do that much. I can do that for
I would say percent is one of the most useful things, like the most immediately applicable things that we do. Okay, so percent, we want to be really good at it because I think you can apply it immediately. I don't think anybody could ever look at this and say, gosh, when will we ever use this? I think you could use it 2 times before the end of the day. You could use it this week. You could use it this month. Percent is a very, very common thing. So let's take a look here. Number 4. Actually, before we do that, I would say whenever we are looking at applications, sometimes this phrase is helpful to think of it as part equals percent times the whole thing. The part equals the percent times the whole thing. I'll use that phrase from time to time. We'll try to get these translated into something useful and work with it from there. The calculator is definitely active and should be very useful in these settings. So let's read this together. Let's just try to read and understand what's going on here. This little paragraph says, by the year 2050, it is predicted that 102 million, or 23.3%, of the U.S. residents will be 17 or younger. If that prediction is correct, what will the population of the U.S. be in 2050, rounded to the nearest million? We're talking about population, right? What do you guys think is, in this little phrase, part equals percent times whole? Wouldn't it be fair to say that the percent is fairly obvious? Percent, right there. Okay, so in this little phrase, we've got the percent right there. It's 23.3%. But what do you think the part is, and what do you think the whole is? What's the part of the information? What's the whole thing? Grace, what do you think?
I think the part is 17.
So that's an age, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I should write part 17 equals percent would be 0.233.
And then the whole is 102 million.
Okay, what do you guys think of that? Good, bad, close, not quite? Where does it fall on that scale? What do you think, Jake?
Why would it be 0.233?
So 23.3%, we always want to convert it over to a decimal if we're going to use it. So we're moving the decimal over 2 spots.
I don't believe it's 17.
You don't like the 17? Well, so Grace has kind of spelled this out for us. Is 17 equal to 0.233 times 102 million? Definitely not. 23% of 100 million is much larger than 17.
Oh, the 17 is the unknown.
The 17 is the unknown. Okay.
70.
So let's fix that. So now Grace is saying that's the unknown. We call it X maybe, or so, is that what you want to call it?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
Let's call it G.
G.
Yeah.
I like G for Grace. So G equals 0.233 times 102 million. So she's saying the part is the unknown and 102 million is the whole thing. What do you think? This takes real effort. Please don't think we can just quickly get an answer. Has Grace hit the exact right answer? Is she off by a little bit? I mean, what do you think, Garrett?
Should it be division?
I'm not asking necessarily for a process yet. I'm just asking, is that a correct translation of that paragraph? Make sense? Joel says no. Jake is like maybe. I'm not sure. Grace or Paige says
Wouldn't the 102 million, wouldn't that be the part?
okay. And what would be the whole?
The population.
Say again.
G would be the whole.
Oh, okay. And could you explain why again? I think you kind of said something about that.
Because the 102 million people are just part of it, because those are just the people under the age of 17.
Oh, do you see how she's starting to pick this apart? She's saying the 102 million is just the people that are under 17, right? And then what does it say here in the end? It says, what will be the population of the U.S.? What's implied there? Isn't that like the whole thing? That's the whole thing. So the population of the U.S., that's the whole thing. And the 102 million, that's the part. Does that make sense? Paige said it really, really well. I mean, seriously, if you think this through practically, is there any way that the number of U.S. residents under 17 could be the whole thing, and the whole U.S. population would just be part of that? Isn't the 102 million part of the larger U.S. population? So what we need to do, Grace started us off really well, but what we really need to do here is we need to swap our variable with the 102 million, because it asks, it says, what will the population of the U.S. be? So that's our unknown. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is rewrite that, and I will get, was it Joel's question? Somebody had their hand up over there. Or was it Luke?
I was going to say that the G would be the amount that we don't know, and the G should be in front of, like that.
Yeah. Because if it's part equals percent times whole, the part would be the people under 17, and G, the unknown, would be the whole thing, because the whole thing is the whole U.S. population, and that's what we're asked to find. So let's just be honest about this really quick. Isn't the easy part what comes next? What do? We actually don't do multiplication. We divide, right? Because we want to get the G by itself, so I would divide by 0.233, and your calculator is going to do all the heavy lifting on that. So let's get an answer, and then I'll get Grace's question. What did you guys get if you do 102 million divided by 0.233?
437,768,240.3. But my question was, since it's with people, wouldn't you not do the 0.3, because you can't have 0.3, so.
Yeah, I can't have 0.3 of a person. It does say rounded to the nearest million. So the nearest million would be right here. So I think we'd say 438 million people. So your point is well taken. In fact, it wants us to round to the nearest million. So 438 million for that one. Okay, so like I said there, the easy part really is the little algebra and then the calculator work, right? The real heavy lifting is the translating from an English paragraph into a math equation. Okay, so that's a really key skill. Please don't blow past that. We all kind of work together. We spend a lot of time on it. So we want to make sure that we are really applying ourselves and trying to figure out what's going on. Do you have any questions before we move on to another one? We'll do one more before we go. Okay, fair enough. Let's try our next one, which is right here. Says U.S. retail sales in the PC game software industry were $538 million in 2009. In 2008, the retail sales were $695 million. Find the percent decrease in retail sales from 2008 to 2009. So the sales went down, didn't they? Video games got less popular or something. The sales went down. So this one is a little more challenging. What's the unknown here? Can you find it?
The decrease.
The percent is the unknown. Notice it says find. Isn't find a keyword identifying our objective?
Yeah.
So it says find the percent decrease. In other words, by what percentage did it go down? Because it did go down, right? It went from 695 million down to 538 million. And so we want to find that percentage of dropping down. Remember, the key idea here, the key equation is still part equals percent times whole. Okay, so what do we know? Do we know the part? Do we know the percent? Do we know the whole thing? We don't know the percent. Will, what do you think?
Well, I think we know the whole and the part.
Okay, so what do you think the whole thing is?
The 695 million.
Yes. So I'm just going to write it as 695. Let's just remember it's in millions. It's really not going to make too much of a difference. So I'm going to say for part equals percent times whole, it's going to be equals. I'll put P for percent. That's our unknown. And Will is right. The whole thing would be 695 million. Is it okay if I just write 695 for now? In the end, all the millions are just going to divide out anyways. Okay, so Will has definitely identified the whole. The part is a little harder to find. Thoughts? Paige?
Would you do 695 million minus 538 million?
That's exactly what you would do, right? Isn't that amount of decrease the part? That's well said. If I subtract 695 minus 538, that'll tell me by how much it decreased, allowing me to find the percent of decrease. So maybe use your calculators, do 695 minus 538. What's that end up being?
157.
157. And of course, it's 157 million. But what are we about to do in the very next step?
Divide.
And so the millions would divide out anyways. So we get 695 divided into both sides. So what is 157 divided by 695? Calculator time, right? Go ahead, Cole.
It's like 0.225.
Okay, that works. That equals P. Now that is not currently a percent, right? If we wanted to convert that over to a percent, what is 0.225 as a percent? What do you think, Alec?
22%.
Well, 22.5%, right?
Yeah.
And it did say round to the nearest percent, so we would take this to 23%. There you go. Wow, that was pretty good. Paige, you picked up on that change in price pretty quick, or change in amount of money pretty quick. That was really well done. Maybe we need to ponder that a little bit more. We definitely will next time, either before our quiz or after our quiz. So consider. Okay, hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See you then.